Hello, everyone, or everyone who's here. Hello. Hopefully we're online now. It says we're live. Again, as usual, I don't know what I'm doing. It took me about 10 minutes to figure out how to get my live stream to come back again. So yeah, I scheduled it. I've done this 4, 5 times now. I still forgot how to make it go live. So there's that. Hey, Susanna, she's here to eat popcorn and drink tea. That's good. I'm here to drink tea. You'll probably notice as the live stream goes on, I'm gonna get more and more scattered. This is because I have not had an appropriate amount of sleep since Sunday. Some of you know I've been fairly sick since Sunday night, and yeah, so as we progress, you're going to notice that what I'm saying is probably not going to make much sense, so please forgive me in advance. But yeah, that's what happens. Good morning to everyone. No, it's not morning where most of you guys are, is it? It's evening where you mostly are. It's morning here, so I'll say good morning anyway. My plants are still alive. I'm very happy about that. We've got Lola here. I thought I'd killed her, but no, she's still alive. And in the back is Harold, and he's very glad to see you too. Hello to Tulips and Honey, to Christine. Oh, yes, Tassie time there. Hi to Kaylee. Hello again to Susanna. She gets two because she's special. Hey, there's a tree lover's daughter there. Hello. Oh, wow, there's more comments here than I thought there were. I thought I was going to have to talk for a fair bit more before a couple of people came, but there's a few of you here. Can you hear me okay? I'm muttering a little bit because I'm very tired. Kaylee says, hello, and thank you for going live. If they don't, will Athelus's redemption continue in the next spin-off series? And we will talk about that actually, because obviously this is the big announcement for the spin-off series and what's going to happen with that. I'm actually really excited about it because obviously, although you guys have only read the last installment of The City Between, I've obviously had this in my mind for 2 to 3 years. And the spin-off series, thanks to Susanna, um, really took wings over the last couple of years. So I've literally been thinking about how things are going to fall out for years and years. And so the spin-off is also very close to my heart, and I'm very excited about it. Good afternoon, Sarah. So that just means that I'm going to be discussing that particular thing and other particular things with regard to spin-offs a little bit later, but in depth. So hopefully that'll be good. By the way, if you guys haven't read Between Kings yet, please be aware that this entire live is probably going to be full of spoilers, and I'm sorry about that, but also you've been warned now. This is definitely a spoiler live. That's why I did it a couple of weeks after is it a couple of weeks? Yeah, it's about 2 weeks after release now. So yeah, I'm hoping that if you haven't read the last, you'll at least be able to block your ears at appropriate times. So this is your warning. Lots of spoilers are going to be talked about. And yeah, that's just going to end up happening. Thank you, Susanna. Yes, Lola does look beautiful. She's putting out leaves again. I thought she was just sort of closing up shop, but ever since I started spraying her with mist of water instead of watering her, she's so happy. So yeah, Lola just likes a bit of tender care apparently. Good morning to Kieran. And oh, good. Everyone's saying they can hear just fine. That's good. Yes, Susanna's taking a bow for all the help she's given me, which is good. Oh my goodness, wow, that is a name and a half. I can see the end of it says Bonnie Chan. Hello. I'm gonna go with that because I don't think I can pronounce the rest of it. Is it meant to be pronounced? Hola to Redbrook. That's a very cool screen name. Kaylee wants to know how Daniel turned into a lycanthrope. Um, I haven't actually written it. He does have a backstory. He was turned in high school, which is why he doesn't have more than a mid high school level education, which is also why he's a little bit rougher and more ochre. Um, I have the feeling, I don't know for sure, and it might be something I write about later. I have the feeling it was his stepfather that turned him. But his stepfather is obviously no longer in the picture. So Yeah, I might have to develop that later. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it was his stepfather that turned him. So, as far as it goes, there's that. Redbrook says, "Yes, spoilers." Yeah, that's good, that's good if you're ready for it. Oh, thank you, Bonnie Chan. I appreciate I appreciate everyone who's been enjoying the books. Oh, yes, okay, so Kieran likes my nails. They're Christmas nails. I didn't get them in time for Christmas because I was busy trying to finish the book. So I got them after Christmas, and I've been very, very happy with them. They've stayed on despite washing up, which is nice. Hello to Becca. It's nice to see you, Becca. Oh, okay. So Red Rook's Akira, Moon Elf. I love that. Moon Elf. Kari asks backstory novella for Daniel, I presume. Yeah, one of these days maybe I'll do that. There's so much to be done in the city between universe, apart from the spin-offs I have planned that I don't think I'll ever be finished writing in that universe. I really don't think I will. There's definitely two spin-offs planned. Um, and there's so many stories I can think of that need telling. So I think it'll only be two spin-offs, but there will absolutely be more stories there, whether they're novellas, full books that just sort of link in or whatever it may be. Um, Kaylee says, "Thank you for going live and answering all our questions." No worries. It's I love interacting on my Facebook page, but as you may have noticed over the last couple days, with the kind of sick that I was, it's very much um, inner ear and eyes and that sort of thing, which meant that for the entirety of Monday, I could barely look at a cricket screen. Wow. Computer screen, without wanting to throw up. I couldn't even talk. So over the last couple of days, I've been limiting my screen time because it's making me feel a little bit ill still, which means I haven't been answering questions as I wanted to be on Facebook on the spoiler thread, which means that it's so much easier to do it face to face like this. So I'm I'm very happy to actually be able to do it this way. It's such a convenient way to talk to everyone all at once and to still be able to hopefully keep in my head some semblance of what I was hoping to talk about. Bonnie Chan wants to know, when did Ruth figure out she was the Harbinger? Okay, she figured out sometime in book 10. Um, she figured it out when she realized that, well, for a start, she'd been going through Athelas's memories, and I didn't distinctly show it on page because I wanted it to be more of a surprise to you guys. So I didn't show her figuring it out actually on page. So you definitely didn't miss it. But there was a process of discovery from her entering Athelas's memories and grabbing out what she wanted from there to realizing that Les had always been around, but he wasn't the one who was gathering people around him. She was the one doing that. But she also realized that because Les was definitely an heirling, and he had to be because he was out there trying to help out at the Ailing trials. So that sort of confirmed it for her, and she just sort of ran with it because it made sense to her. She's the only one, although she was called an heirling for so long, she's the only one who was actually gathering trouble, gathering heirlings. So once she had that idea that it was possible, she knew that that's what it was. You didn't see it on page, and that was for the reason that I didn't necessarily want you to see it on page. I implied it. I thought some people might infer that from what I'd written, but it definitely wasn't written down. So if you missed it, it's not because you missed it as such. It was because I didn't want it to be too easy. I did want it to be a little bit surprising at the end if you hadn't picked up on some of those cues. So yeah, you didn't miss it as such, I don't think. Kaylee says I love Morgana and Daniel's relationship. That's one of my highlights, honestly. When I'm writing, there's always the thing of the main relationship, which is always a lot of fun to write if I'm writing romance. But the side relationships and the side characters, I really enjoy diving into those. I don't think you can write a truly good book without making all of your characters, side characters included, to be real characters. And part of that is giving them motivations and interests outside your main characters. Because let's face it, even if we have best friends, their lives do not revolve around us. They have their own lives, their own motivations. And I feel like a lot of fiction can make the error of making everything about the main characters, which on the face of it makes sense because it's their story. But let's be honest, your friends and even your family don't have you as as the main priority. They have their own goals, identities, and desires, and those things should come out in a book that has fully rounded characters. So I put a fair bit of work into the side characters as much as I can. So I really appreciate the compliments about that. So thank you. Kaylee wants to know, is Athalas a trickster? Um, he isn't. I'm trying to remember if I'm pretty sure that I've had a hint in the between books that tricksters do exist, but I actually can't remember now. It's been 10 books and my memory is really bad. But I'm sure there was one in there somewhere or just mentioned. Becca says that she'll never complain about more stories. Yeah, I'm a little bit like that. I love discovering a new writer, and they have wonderful books, and they've got heaps of them, so I can keep reading them. Ah, Bonnie Chan says her name is confusing. It's a blend of Japanese and English. I figured it was something like that. I saw the Chan at the end, so I didn't know whether that was a Korean Chan or a Japanese Chan, and I wasn't going to try with the start because I was sure that was Japanese, and my Japanese is limited to being able to say my name is, thank you, please, and milk. And those are literally the only things I remembered. I hated doing Japanese in school. I literally hated it. There was something about the sound of it. It just didn't mesh with my brain. Fortunately, I don't have that problem with Korean. I really enjoy learning Korean. Tulips and Honey asked, "Do I have to keep all the extra details written down, like the backstories and stuff, or do I remember them?" I mostly remember them. I don't know how. Actually, I sort of know how. Um, I don't usually know what day of the week it is. Half the time, I don't know what time it is. I have to put stuff like brush teeth into my little alarm system. I've got like 10 alarms in my phone, and I put everything in my phone calendar as soon as I hear it because if I don't, I'll literally forget. So basically, my brain doesn't hold day to day stuff, it holds story stuff, which is very, very cool when it comes to writing. But when it comes to living a day to day life that um, doesn't involve forgetting to eat and forgetting that you had an appointment and forgetting that it's somebody's birthday is not very useful. So, yeah, I have alarms to keep track of all that sort of stuff. The only thing I don't remember and I do write down is because obviously, since I'm face blind, I tend to write down physical descriptors, especially eye color. I'm really bad about remembering eye color. There were several times when I had to go back through one of the City Between books and fix somebody's eye color. It drove me crazy. I did write it down and then I forgot where I wrote it. So it's written down somewhere in my room here. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere here though. Kaylee says, "Sorry you're sick." Yeah, me too. I would really like for this to be over. I thought it would be over by now, but no. Turns out that the Meniere's attack was compounded by either a cold or a flu, or if we're looking at worst case scenario, maybe Omicron. But since the Australian government has stopped using the app that they created specifically for tracking to let people know if they actually went to danger sites, I literally don't know if I've been to a danger site. So I'm just staying home, not going out, and drinking lots of tea, which I can drink again now, which is lovely. Only problem is I'm running out of my favorite tea, so I'm a little bit sad. And I can't go out to get more. Becca asks, "Do City Between and Playing Hearts exist in the same universe?" No, they don't. They're completely different universes. The only connector is that they both exist in a version of Australia. Because when I started writing urban fantasy type stuff and alternate universe type stuff, um, there wasn't a lot of Australian entries into that. I still don't see very much Australian fantasy, whether it's urban fantasy or portal fantasy. It just so little of it exists. The only one I can think of at the moment is the Lab Rat 1 series, which I really love. There were 3 books of it, and I can't at the moment remember the author's name, but I love them. The girl came from Sydney, and she ended up in a portal world, and I love it so much. So I wanted to be able to it sounds pretentious to say I wanted to provide more representation, but that's kind of what it is. I want more Australian fiction out there. I want to be able to use Australianisms, Australian spellings without people trying to force me to use American ones. Um, that's fine if you're an American author, but I don't feel that as an Australian author I should be or or ragged on made to use or ragged on for using Australian stuff instead of American stuff. So because, I'm an Australian, I write in an Australian way with an Australian mindset, so I want more of that out there, and I don't see very much of it, so this is me putting it out there. Redrook says that they're readers that you guys are readers and you pick through everything. Well, yes, honestly, me too. Chillets and Honey is asking, "Do I have a Patreon?" I don't. I did think about it for a while when I was first starting up. I make a living from writing, so I'm very happy with just um, getting royalties and doing it that way. I did think about it, but it's not a model I feel really comfortable with. I like this level of interaction that I have with you guys at the moment. I would feel slightly burdened by doing Patreon because I would feel like I was necessarily not necessarily selling myself. Other people do Patreon and I think they do it really well. It's just something that makes me uncomfortable. I feel like I'm on a leash. And that's really, really uncomfortable for me. I know several people who do it exceedingly well, and I'm very glad for them. They they seem to feel really happy about doing it. But for me, it's just not so much comfortable. Curry says that in between frames, I mentioned them, which I assume is the tricksters. Yay! But Patreon's a sort of thing where you can write extra shorts and that sort of thing and share them, which is a great it's a great model. I really do like it. I think I'll keep on doing little short things and putting them out in the newsletter and then making, full books out of them and doing them that way. Kaylee asks, "I hope you don't mind me asking so many Athalas questions, but was Athalas the original king's murderer?" Do you mean did he murder the king before the current king that was in when Pet started to know about everything? Or do you mean was he the one helping the king that was in power when Pet came to know everything? Because if you mean did he murder the king, the original king himself? No, he didn't. Um, the king himself, when he came to power, he did all the killing himself. It was only after he was settled in his ways that he started sort of not necessarily hiring stuff out, but using a bit more muscle for it to get stuff done. And he and Lord Zero were very closely aligned with getting that sort of thing done, though obviously Lord Zero had his own reasons for doing what he was doing and didn't realize he was helping the king as much as he thought he was. As much as he was, so he thought he was doing something else. Redrook says, "Me in Spanish." Spanish is hard. I'm learning Italian as well at the moment, and it has its own difficulties, but it's yeah. Sarah says, "Sounds like hyperfixation." Yeah, it's very strongly suspected that I'm ADHD. I tend to say I'm ADHD because every test I've done has said, "You are extremely ADHD, please go to the doctor." But if I do that, they might give me medication, and I'm not sure how I feel about medication at this point. So we'll see. Redrook asks, "Are we in lockdown?" No, we're not. We are at the moment just wearing masks when we're in an enclosed space in public. If you're in public but out in the open, you don't have to wear your mask. And basically, people have started up Facebook groups to say, "I was infected and here's where I've been," because obviously the government has stopped using the app for that. They're only using it to track rather than give information. So people are relying on other people to do that at the moment. Tulips Susanna says T2 does mail order. They do, and I love that, and I'm probably gonna end up doing that. But as you know, in Australia, the postage is abysmal, and it'll take at least 2 weeks, if not 3 to 4 weeks to get here. So, yeah, good old Australia Post. Tulips and Honey says, "I love playing Hearts, but the Lady of Dreams is my favorite outside City Between." Oh, yay, I'm so glad to hear that. Lady of Dream like the Lady series and the Time Traveler series, they're definitely not as popular as the rest, but they're 2 of my favorite things that I've written, so I'm always very excited when someone likes them. Okay, I'll answer a couple more questions, and then I will go on to the announcement and a few of the thoughts I had after seeing some reactions because they play into why I'm writing this particular spin-off. So I'll answer a few more questions now, and then we'll go into the announcement. Obviously, there will be lots of spoilers there, and then we can go back to answering some questions and just generally talking, I think. Sarah says, "You write what you want to read. Nothing wrong with that." That's, yeah, I do write what I want to read. I think it's really important. Someone was talking on an author board lately about how sometimes there's an overlap between what you want to write and what people want to read, which is the sweet spot, which is perfect and exactly what you want, but that doesn't overlap as much as you would like it to overlap, which is, of course, what happens with things like my Lady series and the Time Travelers series, which is what I love writing best, even though I've adored writing the City Between. And to find that over I think I've found that overlap with the City Between series, which is a really good mix of what I absolutely love writing and what people seem to love reading. So that's great. It just means that, the things that I really, really love sometimes have to wait on the back burner, but they all go into making what I do put out that's more popular a better produced product in my mind. So it's all worthwhile anyway. Tulips and Honey says, "Australian accent is epic. We love it." Yeah, I'm so glad that there's so many of you out there. Like, I've had some people either contact me or just put what I consider to be slightly ridiculous, um, reviews out there because I usually keep up with the latest 2 books I've released with reviews. After that is just too hard, so I don't tend to keep up. But, yeah, I recently saw one where somebody was complaining very heftily about the Australian slang. And after laughing a lot about it, I just came back and I was like, "But the people who are on my Facebook page, I've never appreciated you guys so much because 'cause I'm like, these people actually go out and find out what they mean. They're willing to learn. They're excited about learning." And I think that's a really awesome thing. I think it's fantastic to have readers who aren't so bound up in their own cultural identity that they're willing to go out to find out other things about other cultures even when they're so different from their own, and I love that. It's amazing. You guys are amazing readers. Esther says, "I'm American and the Aussie slang and words absolutely make my day. It makes the book so unique and I love it." But again, you guys are taking it with the attitude of, "Oh my goodness, this is a new thing. I can learn about this. It's great." Yeah, Australian people are saying they love the Australian spellings. Kaylee says, "I have an Australian accent because of the book." Anne wants to know, why does anyone get upset that an Australian writer uses Australian settings characters? I know, I don't understand it either, but there are definitely those people. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Andrea K. Host is the author of the Stray series. It's the Stray series. It started out with Lab Rat 1. I believe there's 3 there was definitely 3. There might be more now, but they're 100% worth the read. I love them. It's portal fantasy into sort of space monsters and weird eldritch creatures in kind of space type thing. If you're into Japanese manga and anime that has a lot of the fighting and that sort of thing, I think you'll find it really appealing. I love it. It's fantastic. Bonnie Chan wants to know, did I know she was the Harbinger from the very beginning? If not from the beginning, from pretty close. That was sort of all the all the plan all along. There were certain things that were set in stone. The murderer, um, The murderer was set in stone. Pet being a harbinger instead of an ailing was set in stone. The choice of the king was set in stone from about book 2 or 3, so it wasn't right from the start, but I knew it wouldn't be Pet. Because originally at the start, okay, so I think Pet's harbinger status was possibly maybe book 2 or 3 that I was absolutely determined on it. Because until then, I wasn't necessarily planning on doing the whole king and throne timeline thing. I was planning on that for maybe a spin-off, and I was just gonna do dealing with Lord Zero. That was going to be the end game of book 10. But as I wrote, things got more complicated and things began to be set in stone by about book 3, where I was absolutely certain, okay, we're going to do this, the whole king and the throne, we're gonna sort it out. And Pet is this, Les is this, the murderer is still the same, and his motivations had already tied in really well with what I'd already written. So as usual for a pantser, I pantsed a fair bit of it, especially up until that point, but up after that point, everything was set in stone when it came to those particular things. Curry wants to know, why did the king wish Ruth good luck? Because to him it was a kind of mockery. I guess he never thought that she could actually win. He never actually thought that it would make a difference. So he had the leisure and the slight amount of sportsmanship, but mostly mockery, to be able to wish her good luck. If he'd known a bit more, then I don't think he would have. Amber says that the Australian bits are fun to find in the new books. The spelling for esophagus really threw. Oh, yes, I saw a few people mention that. Yeah, it is very different. She also says they watch Bluey. Yes, Bluey is really, really good. I have nephews, so I know about Bluey, otherwise I probably wouldn't. Bluey's definitely good. Um, Lil Fish says, "I didn't fully understand the Black Point side plot. I'm not quite sure what bit you didn't understand, so maybe elaborate on that and I might be able to answer." Kaylee says she has a couple of city between questions and then she's gonna stop them. She's gonna group them together in the comments. Will Zero and Palomina be a couple? Will Athalas and Abigail be a couple? Abigail and Athalas, definitely not. There is someone else in mind for Abigail that's going to be very difficult for her to accept. Probably slightly more easy, slightly easier now, but we'll see. Zero and Palomina, well, you'll probably have to see because I think there's going to be a book written about them. We'll see. Christine says, not everyone with ADHD requires med to allow the developing brain to get used to the differences. Yeah, yeah. I've heard that a lot of grown-ups who finally get the meds are like, this changed my life. And honestly, it's been very debilitating for certain periods in my life and some of them very recent. So I don't know what the thing is with me, but it is absolutely debilitating at some stage. I actually thought I wasn't going to be able to get the last between book finished because I literally couldn't write for about 2 weeks because of it. Tulips and Honey says they've read The Time Traveler's Best Friend obsessively and it's fantastic. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna keep the comments where it is at the moment and go into the announcements since we're at about, yeah, half hour, and I think we'll be going for about an hour and a half today. So I will go on to the announcement. Okay, first up, I saw a lot of, not a lot of, I saw one or two um, bits of chatter or reviews about the final book. Most of you guys either loved it with no reservations or loved it with reservations that you were sad about some things, which I knew there would be a lot of because I mean I was also I was also sad about it. But one of the most concerning things I saw out there was somebody who was very angry that everyone didn't just come in and hug Aeschylus at the end and forgive him everything unconditionally because of what a hard life he'd had, sold into slavery and raised basically by torture, being forced to kill things that he'd been taught to love. and that he'd always been a servant, and that they should have unconditionally forgiven him for slaughtering these hundreds of people, including their parents and close relatives. They should have just hugged him, forgiven him because he had such a hard life. First of all, I strongly disagree with that, because if you do that, there is no meaningful justice in the world, and meaningful justice is necessary regardless of whether you had a bad childhood, whether you were treated badly or didn't know better. You still caused damage, you still killed someone's loved one. There needs to be justice for that. It is necessary. So in in terms of justice, you can't just say, "It's okay, you're fine," and hug him and take him back into the family. It wouldn't be fair to the victims, but more importantly, or not even more importantly, but secondly, it wouldn't be fair to Athalas himself. And the reason I say that is, if you accept someone back unconditionally, just forgiving them without expecting them to repent fully, to understand what they've done, or to even try and change, you're not doing them any good. You're just confirming them in all the bad things that they did because, oh, you had such a bad childhood, so you should be allowed to do those things because you don't know better. No, because then he never learns better. He needs to come to rock bottom. He needs to come to a point where he realizes the full enormity of the monster that he is. Because if he doesn't realize that, there is absolutely no possibility of him changing at all. And for me, if he can't change at all, there is no hope of reconciliation or restoration with Pet or Zero or anybody else. So at the end of the main series, the hope I gave him was forgiveness from his victims, which he didn't deserve, but also they felt they had to give because, like this person says, he had a horrible childhood. He does know no better, and they loved him. So, because of those reasons, they gave him that forgiveness. It was hard for them to do, but they gave it. But as Pet says, they couldn't accept him back because as of yet, he hasn't acknowledged the full impact of what he's done. He enjoyed the trickiness of what he was doing, even when he was with Pet and growing to love her. He was still playing games with her and enjoying it because that's the kind of person he is. He is only wired to hurt and to enjoy hurting. It's the only thing he knows. So until he knows something other than that, the only thing he can do toward the people he loves is hurt them. Which brings us exactly into the spin off series, which, if you haven't guessed it by now, will be entirely Athalas. So, this will be a 5-book series of Athalas going through an entire lifetime's worth of learning who he is, learning exactly how much damage he's done and why that's a bad thing, coming to want to distance himself from that part of himself before it can lead to what we would be hoping for as a restoration with the people he's harmed. Now, obviously, that's spoilers to tell as to whether he gets that or not, but the entire 5-book series is about Athalas. He is the main character, and he's going to continue his growth in this next series. So you'll get a lot more of Athalas. Um, he's already going to be, he's also going to be with several characters I'm really excited about. There is okay, so it's set in Korea to start with because Athalas has the idea that he might be able to sneak into a certain wedding that is taking place in Korea at this time. It would be spoilers to say what wedding that is, but perhaps you can think which one it might be. And yeah, so there's hope for some connection with characters from previous series. It is also we've also got a Korean character who is a gumiho, and if you guys know a little bit of Korean or even some Japanese, I think they call them kitsune in Japanese. It's basically a fox, 9 tails, eats the livers of men, that sort of that sort of thing. Her name is Yo. I figured I'd be really on the nose with the name. It basically means fox in Korean, so that's what I went with. So, yeah, Susanna's saying here, I've been rereading the series, and yes, Athalis is spending the whole time laughing up his sleeve at his own bloodthirsty cleverness. That is exactly what he's doing. He's in to a certain extent, he loves what he's doing. He loves the way he does stuff. And I love Athalis. I really love him and I want the best for him. And that is exactly why I'm not going easy on him, because if I did, he would just settle into his own wickedness. And I don't want that. So we're going to do that in the series. It's going to have 5 books. There's going to be a young boy named Harrow and a housekeeper called Camellia. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's probably going to be the most planned out series I've ever done. With the themes I want to explore, it needs to be more planned than I would normally do something. So yeah. So I'm just looking through a few of the comments here, and then I'll go back and answer some questions, and I'll also answer some questions about the spin-off as well. Red Rook says, yes, let's go for some self-healing for Athalis. Tulips and Honey says, best news ever. My favorite Psycho, I assume it is, and the character arc is epic. Thank you. Anne is excited about the Athalis series. Yay. Me too. Megan says, yay, hoping this one was about Athalis. And yes, Red Rook, new characters. Definitely new characters, though some of them will appear. Tree Lover's daughter says they were hoping for um, more of Athalis's moral journey. So yes. Oh, I'm glad you guys are looking forward to it. I've actually been wondering how well it would go down, but I wanted to do it so badly that I just decided to do it. Kari says, main character third person, or will we get into his head a bit? So it will be probably third person close with touches of omniscient, but third person close will be, yeah, third person close will be the most of it. I was intending on doing it from a dual point of view, his and Yoel's point of view. However, I think it will be more effective just from his point of view, and there are certain things that I want to keep hidden that I can't keep hidden if I use another perspective. So Shirley says, ooh, Gumiho. Yes, I'm very excited about the Gumiho. There's so much you can do with them. It's really interesting when you start learning a different language, how many things you discover are different. Even just the fairy tales are so different from culture to culture that it's very exciting. When you learn a new language, you start learning new bits of culture, and things that you thought were the norm are not actually the norm. They're just the norm for your culture. So it's very exciting to me. Siwang says there's going to be a lot of future research concerning body parts and dismemberment, isn't there? I already did all of that. That's one of my that's one of my favorite studies. I learn a lot from documentaries, and from true crime shows, but also from a lot of very bloodthirsty TV shows. I'm not good with actual hearing about actual real people being hurt or seeing real violence. I don't enjoy. I like some distance between me and it, and fake stuff in movies is a lot of fun. But yeah, so I learn from a distance, but I do enjoy my learning. Little Fish says my description of Athalas, whoops, now I've lost the comment. Come back. Is very biblical. The Old Testament is much about dysfunctional families and revenge. New Testament is breaking out of that cycle, forgiveness and atonement. Um, I guess you could say that. Yeah. Um, Red Rook wants to know, wait, who is this precious little bean named Harrow? I think you're gonna love him. I'm a little bit worried about him. Um, for some reasons I won't elaborate, but I'm going to have to do some more research that isn't necessarily personal research for him, just to make sure that I get him right. But I'm really looking forward to writing him. Uh, Atlas seems to draw in strays. Whether that's good for the strays who are being drawn in or not, we have yet to see. But Harrow is a very important part of the new new series, so I'm looking forward to that. Susanna says her suspicion is that Harrow is the little boy from Queensland in the file from book 6 to 7. A lot of people have asked about him. I and I said this on the Facebook post earlier, but when I write stuff, especially series and things in the worlds, not everything necessarily has an answer that connects to the main storyline. So with me, all of this is part of the world and that happened, so it's in there, but it's not necessarily connected to everything. So Harrow isn't the little boy from Queensland. I feel safe to say that because I did originally wonder if he could be, but I came to the conclusion that he can't be. I'm pretty sure he either remained hidden during the Ailing trials and everything else, or he ended up being killed in the Ailing trials. I actually don't know what happened to him. I just know that he existed, and Athalis was trying to keep him hidden at that stage because although he wanted everything to come out, he didn't want it to come out at that point. He was also at that point starting to not want it to come out at all in terms of I don't think he wanted to lose his relationship with Pet. So it's yeah, it's not that little boy and we may never see that little boy again. But yeah, that's the reason why I don't always answer questions. Some things just aren't connected. Some things are just part of the world that happened as part of the history for other reasons other than that they are connected to the main storyline. So if I don't answer a question, it could be because of that. You never know. Kaylee says this is going to be epic. I hope so. We'll see how it goes. Redrook says, wait, even more things that are hidden? Yes, okay, as you may have noticed, okay, some people have said that I'm more like Athelis than Pet, and in some ways that's extremely true. I enjoy playing games out in the open with my writing that you may not be able to tell straight away are a certain thing, but when you come back and reread with future knowledge, you can understand what's being said. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love doing it. I really enjoy it. And I am absolutely planning on doing something of the same sort with Athelis's story. There's one thing in particular that I am very happily planning at this moment because I think it's going to be so much fun to do. But also, I think you guys are going to really, really love it when you find out what's happening. So, yeah, you can look forward to that. Kieran O'Brien says they absolutely adore Athelis. The end of 8 ripped their heart to shreds, and getting to see his journey toward healing that he only just started with Pet is so much joy. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it. Also because I knew you just with the space I had, I just couldn't do it in this series. It had to be left as it was because too much too soon and Athelis will be ruined. He'll never be able to be fixed or to fix himself, which is more important. So Redbrook says it's always fun to learn ways that people can die. Oh, Kari wants to know is it a very casual giant machete in the background? Kind of, yes. That's my Lord of the Rings sword that a friend of mine got for me. There's actually a lot of stuff dangling in the background that you can't necessarily see, but that one, yes, that's a sword. It's not a dangerous sword. It's one of those like LARPing ones. It's foam. It looks very real though. I when my friend gave it to me at that time, I was in Hobart. So I'm walking around with this giant Lord of the Rings elvish sword and the looks I got. So yeah, it's quite lifelike. But machete, no. I used my cousins used to have machetes, but that was because they were banana pickers. So I always loved a good machete. Kaylee wants to know what happened to Ezri's parents, by the way. I actually don't know. There's a lot of them that I'm not necessarily sure what happened. Abigail, I sort of know. Abigail has mm, her own little knot in the tapestry, I guess. So I know exactly what happened to her and I know exactly what her story's going to be and who a potential love interest is going to be for her. So I have a feeling I'll end up writing that book as well. I'm also planning on writing one with Zero in his new position as enforcer with regard to making sure humans are taken care of. So Susanna says she's worried about Harrow if he's going to be hanging out with Athalis. Yes, you should be very worried. That is a very legitimate concern. I am also worried about Harrow. I've got to be I've got to be very, very careful with the poor little darling. Otherwise, yeah, he is very delicate. Redbrook says, of course we shall love the precious little bean, and oh no, please keep him mostly safe. I'll do my best. As Susanna says, hanging out with Athalis is not necessarily the safest place to be. Bonnie Chan asks, are we going to get to see the boutique that Ruth owns? Yes, actually, you'll see that in the second series, the second spin-off series. You won't see it in this particular spin-off series, but the second one, which I won't announce just yet, but I have huge plans for, and I'm so much looking forward to writing. But we announced one series today, so I think we'll stick with just the announcing one. Confused Raccoon says, finally caught up to the live, joined late unfortunately, so thrilled the first spin-off is about Atlas. Didn't dare to hope for that. Yeah, I ever since I talked it over with Susanna, I had already been thinking about something like that, but I hadn't had any direction for it. And funnily enough, it came up under the discussion of what would it mean if Athalis kissed someone? And I said, well, that's the sort of thing I wanted to explore with, a potential spin-off, but I'm not sure how I could go about doing it. And yes, she very much encouraged me and gave me some very good directions to think about when it came to that. So it's like half Susanna's fault that this is actually going to happen because I wasn't sure I would be able to do it. Wang says, we may never see that little boy again. Top CB live out of context quotes. Yeah, a lot of what I say on my lives can be construed in a somewhat, oh, worrisome way, I guess. Redbrook says they love rereads, especially for series that are done that way. And thank you for writing that way. You're welcome. It's lots of fun for me too, because sometimes when I go back to reread something that I've written, even I've forgotten what's happened. So I actually get to read it as if I hadn't written it, which is lots of fun. Yay for my good old brain. Sarah says now she wants Athalis to discover a love of writing mysteries. That would be terrifying. I mean, you wouldn't know if he was doing his research in a convivial way or a non-convivial way, would we? So I'm not sure about that. Kieran O'Brien says, I thought that looked elvish. It does. It's got that elvish sweep to it. It's even got the elvish writing on it as well. I'm very fond of Lord of the Rings. I actually have to go through a rewatch of the entire extended editions. There was so much that irritated me about it, but so much I loved about it, and it's sort of imprinted on me now because I watched it at a very impressionable age when I first watched it. Redbrook says, "Oh no, even the author is scared for Harrow." I'm very scared for him. I've got to got to really look after him. Oh, we've got Clockwork Girl Productions saying, hi, my mum and I absolutely love City Between and the Time Traveler's Best Friend series, and so excited for the new one. One question about City Between: where do Vesper's shadows come from if Ralph's house is dead, or is that unanswerable? The shadows are actually because the house is dead, so things are sort of escaping from the place where it used to be. If you'll remember in the books, we talked about several human people had disappeared in the house. So it's not just people who've disappeared in there. Other things and behindkind had also disappeared in there or been in there. So when the house disappeared as a result of the ailing trials, everything closing up and being eaten, that pushed out everything that was there that could get out, which means that you've got some humans just suddenly being thrown out into behind, which makes me really, really happy because I have one of them that has an entire story that I need to. He's the one who didn't want to come out. He was like, "Oh my goodness, I've found meaning to my life. There is a world behind the worlds." And he's just like, "I'm not coming out. I'm staying here and exploring." So he's just been wandering around on the inside of that house for literally years, and I love him. So I'm going to tell a story about him at some stage. The shadows are just more of that, but they're the behind kind sort that got pushed out into the human world. So they're a little bit unfriendly at the moment, which is why they're causing trouble with Vespa. Anne says, "A second City Between spin-off, I'm thrilled." Me too, I'm really looking forward to this one. Um, it's been on my mind for a while, and I'm very excited at the idea of being able to play around with Pet and Jin Yong having their boutique shop and how that's going to work into the main storyline. Susanna says, "You should tell them the story." I actually don't remember all of the story, though. I'm really bad at remembering the story. This is my problem. I remember bits and pieces and then I forget the rest. Susanna, tell the story in the comments so I can remember too. Tulips and Honey says, "Any idea about when the first spin-off will be out or when they'll be able to obsess over excerpts posted online?" Okay, so I've already started writing a little bit of it, just bits here and there. And like I said, I've been doing a lot of planning, which is very unusual for me. I would show you some of the planning I've done, but I've lost it. Um, no, I haven't lost it. It's still here. It's beside my bed, but it's in my little iPad, and I can't be bothered to get up and grab it. But I have lots of plans for that. It's all sitting there. However, this year I need to first get Cinderella Must Die published at the end of February. Then there will be Castle and Key, which is Susan's story in the Two Monarchies series, and then we've got Lady of Ink, which is the third Lady book. And after that, I'll be free to write the entire lot of the first spin-off series, which means Cinderella Must Die already being 80% finished. I only have to write a little bit this month and it's ready to go. So I only have 2 full books to write, both of which I have a really good idea about what's going to happen, which means it'll be a lot quicker to write. Then I can start on the spin-offs, and since they're all shorter books like The City Between was, I should have the first 2 books finished by the end of the year at least, which means you can look forward to excerpts from the first spin-off series sort of toward August, September this year, and they'll be published over the entirety of 2023. So you'll get 5 books in 1 year. You won't have to wait too many months between each book, because by the time the publication for the first book comes around, I'll be working on the 3rd or 4th book. And I'm actually commissioning the covers right now, so I'm hoping to have some cover reveals for you guys soon. I already have a cover reveal waiting for you. Susan's book, which is the Castle and Key one, I've already got the cover for that. I just didn't want to muddy the waters with the City Between announcement and everything that was happening with the Athelas spin-off series, which, by the way, I think I told you already is called the Worlds Behind series. I did have some titles here that I wrote down. And again, I'm pretty sure that I already told you guys what the titles were. I think I wrote them down and put them out. So if I can't find them here, that's okay. The first one's going to be called A Whisker Behind at any rate. So yeah, The World's Behind, A Whisker Behind, that's the first one. And they'll be coming out in 2023, starting in probably February or March, I reckon. So it's a little bit far away, but you'll get some excerpts a little bit sooner than that. And I'm very much looking forward to sharing Athelas's journey with you guys. I'm very excited to see it myself and honestly a little bit scared because a lot of the things that I'm trying to do with this series, like when I first started thinking about this spin-off series, I was only going to explore 2 ideas, that of justice and that of mercy. But as I wrote the end of Between Kings, I realized that to only write about those 2 things would make the series incomplete. I also needed to write about repentance and restoration to make Athelas's arc complete and satisfying. So, and that with the addition of Harrow and also the addition of Camellia, who wasn't necessarily going to be what she turned out to be in the series. I actually wasn't planning on a housekeeper, but she's there now, and she won't go away. So I'm actually a little bit concerned because when I started doing City Between, A lot of my own experience and life went into that, and it helped enormously because I was exploring things that I had no names for and no other way to express or think about other than through the books. And obviously, I'll be doing the same thing with this series, but it's a lot more complicated and it's a lot harder to get right. So I'm worried about being able to do it justice. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a little bit worried, but I'm really looking forward to it. So that's good. Susanna for King of Behind. Redbrook says about Athelis being a mystery writer, yeah, never mind, he'd be the scariest writer ever. Katie wants to know, is Vesper a behind kind? No, she's completely human, 100% human. Or maybe she's not 100% human. She's mostly human. She's got a little bit of extra sight though, so there must be no, but humans get extra sight as well. So I think she's 100% human. Kari says, Pet and Jin Yong having a boutique is giving me Gail Carriger hat shop vibes. Oh, hat shops. I like hat shops. No, it'll be boutique clothing, but yeah, that also sounds very cool. Susanna says, so basically the thing is that we were discussing the city between and the love interests. And what I actually said was, of course, if Athelis was to kiss someone, it wouldn't be romantic at all, which is true because obviously he can't untwist any kind of relationship he has with what he wants out of that relationship and what he can do via that relationship. So romance, no. Manipulation, yes. So that was, yeah, very much what we talked about from that point. Like I remembered it was about the kiss and I remembered it was something that, what would it mean? I think that's what Susanna asked, what would it mean if he kissed someone then? And that sort of brought everything out. Redrook says, I just want to see more of Pet and Jin Yong. They're one of my absolute favorite couples ever. I'm so glad you like them. I was actually really worried, really worried about them because, um, as you guys know, I normally end romantic relationships in books sort of after the kiss, I guess. There's not usually any further. And a lot of the reason is I have no experience in knowing what a normal relationship is. I literally dated one person and married them. And the dating we did, I don't think was normal dating. Um, so I have literally no idea of what a healthy, normal relationship looks like in terms of personal experience. I have literally no idea. So yeah, I was a little bit worried about that. I actually, as I was as I was trying to write it, I was doing research in terms of listening to people's dating stories and looking up stuff on the internet, listening to horror dating stories, which was so much fun. And now I have an addiction for listening to people's horror dating stories online, which is a lot of fun. You should definitely try it out. But yeah, I was very worried about that. So to hear that they're a favorite couple, I'm so glad. Thank you. That makes me very happy. Clockwork Girl says, thank you so much. This is about Vesper. We had theorized that was it, but it's so much more than we thought about, and it's so exciting. And she loves that they love that one of the humans got brave and adventurous. Yeah, do you guys remember Jumanji? How there's the dude in all the pith hat and the shorts. What's that stuff called? The stuff that's really light to wear. Anyway, it's jungle clothing type thing. He makes me think of that person just in the way they look like. Bonnie Chan asks, does a harbinger have other things they need to do once the king is selected, or is that done? They're just there as as not so much as a guardian, but just to make sure everything goes well and keep things in check. They're meant to be a balance to the king, which is why they're involved in the selection process of the king, which also means that even the human ones get a very greatly extended life, which is to answer some of the questions I saw on Facebook about how will Pet and Jin Yong deal with the thing of her dying so much sooner than him. She won't die sooner than him. She's a harbinger, and she gets a long lifespan with that. It's a positional thing, but it confers some extra benefits. to it. So yeah, that's what she does. She just makes sure that he doesn't go too far astray from what he should be doing and being as the king of behind. Redbrook says, I need to read some Cinderella Must Die. Yeah, Susanna says she just thought about it for about a year and then came back and was like, okay, I have questions. If Athalos did kiss someone, what would it mean? And two, if he was romantically interested in someone, then what would happen apart from a really large number of bodies? I actually have these screen capped because I know my memory. They are screen capped. They're sitting on my computer, these questions that she asked me, also because I wanted to remember for the writing of the book. And she says, apparently, those are the questions that needed asking. Yes, those were the questions that needed asking because it gave me a really good idea of a large part of what I wanted to do with one of the characters. Redbook says, ooh, cover reveals. Yeah, I'm excited too. I get very excited about cover reveals. You guys have no idea how hard it is um, for someone like me. If I have something that's ready to go, I'm like, I want to put it out there. I want to throw it out there. I want it to be out. I want people to see it. I've been sitting on this cover for the last month without being able to share it, and it bothers me. I hate it. So I'm very excited about the cover reveal. I'll probably do that next week, or even if I get excited this week. I'm trying to concentrate on getting the fan art entries for the fan art competition out. You guys have until the end of January to submit those, and then we'll be doing the public fan vote of which one is the favorite, and then I'll be picking two for the different categories. There's a lot of really good artwork in there, guys. I'm gonna hopefully start up a Twitter thread, first of all, labeling each of them and the artists, and I will figure out at some stage how to do a Google form so that you guys can vote more conveniently, and I'll post that at the end of each thread, whether that's on Facebook or Twitter or Discord or anywhere that it is. I'll make sure that that it's right at the end in a convenient location so you can actually vote for the one you like the best. But the first lot of those should be up this weekend. I've been trying very hard to get my act together and do it. It was just a little bit hard this week. I didn't get to go on my staycation, by the way. I was throwing up at the time. And yeah, so my bags are down there. They're still packed. They're still sitting there. Or bag. My little hat's still sitting there with the little hat pin in there just waiting for me. I was not able to use them, so I guess I'll just try and rebook for a couple of weeks from now and hope that everything's better by then. Anne says, I really love the two monarchies, so I've been waiting for Susan's story. Oh yay. Curry says she's a lady with a plan. She is very much a lady with a plan. She's always a lady with a plan, just like Isabella, just in a slightly more blunt and maybe blunt force trauma way. Esther asks, do we get a Gumiho in the first or second spin-off series? That's in the first spin-off series. The second one has more probably European monsters because of where it's going to be set. So, yeah. So she's actually going to be a female Gumiho. Name of Yol. Siwang's excited about Camellia the housekeeper. And Redbrook says they want to meet this refuses to go away housekeeper. Me too. I'm really looking forward to her. I had to write down some things for her so that I would remember them because they're very important things when she comes in. Esther says she loves Pet and Jin Yong together so ridiculously much. Oh, thank you, Shirley. Shirley says Pet and Jin Yong feel very real and normal, which is nice. Are we getting some weird comments in here? Let's just get rid of those while I'm at it. So I have no idea what happens with and why some people post weird stuff in the comments. Who knows? I don't usually notice quickly enough because the comments are usually a lot more than I can get to. So Redbrook says I need to go hunt down horrible dating shows. You definitely do. They are so much fun to listen to. The latest one I listened to was Mormon horror dating stories, and some of them were, you know, between Mormons or someone who was a Mormon dating someone who wasn't, or who wasn't dating someone who was, just anything connected, and it was very interesting. Siwang says they love that we got a relationship beyond the kiss. Yeah. So many novels end right after that. I'm glad we got so much more afterward. It was necessary, especially for this relationship, I thought. So I did want to do that. I was just a little bit worried about it. Ah, yes, I've got to see more of the Jumanji movies. I've caught up to where you guys are talking about Jumanji because I was talking about it earlier. Oh, true. Esther's saying if we ended after the kiss, the series would be done after book 3. I mean, true. Yeah, so that would be really awkward. That would not work out well. Kaylee wants to know, why did Athalos want revenge on the king? Well, he's basically the main reason that the world behind is as twisted as it is at this point. Originally, when you have that's the idea of the kings changing so that not too much power gets amassed in one place, so that not one set of people gets more powerful than the other. So the cycle's meant to keep things more of an even keel for the species or the kinds that are less strong than others, which is also a reason why they're meant to have some human blood in them. It's meant to be someone who can be representative. So the king and Lord Sira are a huge reason why the world itself is so messed up to start with, that Athelas ended up in the position he was in. And having lived in the position he was in and having dealt with everything from Lord Zero as well, he just wanted to burn everything. Like it wasn't enough to just get rid of Zero. He literally wanted to set the world on fire, which is exactly what he did. Tulips and Honey wants to know, did Pet's parents know she was a harbinger? No, no. I don't think they even knew as much about the world behind as harbingers and airlings. Most of what they knew was, we have a very special child. We also see monsters, and monsters are a thing. Just like Abigail and her group, rather than knowing about the nuances of behind, they just knew that there's a world connected to ours and there's lots of monsters, and sometimes you need to kill those monsters. So they they do that. Yeah. Curry wants to know, is Athelas's love interest similarly aged in world experience? Oh, I sort of don't want to answer that, because answering one way or the other is going to give more spoilers than I care to give. So I'm going to leave that question unanswered, I think. Red Rook says, will you be posting the artwork on Discord too? Yes, I'll definitely do that. I've just got to find a way to do it so that maybe I'll have to make a special channel for it, or turn off the commenting on the fan art for a while so people can actually get a look at things, or either that or I'll just have to do it in one big lot. I might make a special channel for it, and then it can be just the special channel for stuff in general. We'll see. But yes, I'll put it on Discord as well. Kieran says, oh, sad. Hopefully you can go away and enjoy it to the fullest. The place looks so lovely. Yeah, this is the place I was going to have the staycation at. Glorious house, beautiful restaurant, lots of beautiful waterfalls and lookouts and old shops nearby. I was so much looking forward to it. Red Rook asks, wait, do dragons include European monsters? Yeah, well, yeah, you could say that dragons are European monsters. They are rather large, though. I'm not sure how I would fit a dragon into a book. I mean, I've already done it, but not necessarily with this series. So we'll see. Annie's asking, what's the name of the third lady book? Lady of Ink. So so I'll definitely do that. Lady of Ink, yeah, Sayri's story. That's right. Who knows? There might be some dragons in there. I'm not quite sure though. I think it'll involve more malicious monsters, because dragons in general. Well, the second. Okay, so the second spin-off series will have monsters. No, I can't say too much, otherwise it'll be spoilers for that series, so that'll have to wait. I'm gonna go back and see if I can catch some of the questions I missed earlier before I went into the announcements. In the meantime, keep putting your questions or comments in the in the chat there because I will definitely get back to them. I think I've come to the end of most of the ones that are there, so I'll try and catch up with the ones I missed earlier. I've gotten back to the point where you guys are talking about T2 doing online orders, which I'm definitely gonna have to do. I need my tea. I've got some left. It's the Morning Sunshine blend, but I have no more French Earl Grey, which is my daily tea, and I've run out of my Go Go Goer, which is my sort of evening tea. I have a morning and an evening tea. I'm very sad. Yeah, I've got back to where some of you guys were definitely shipping Athelis and Abigail, which is very interesting to me. Or very, very interesting. But no, that's not gonna happen because I have someone else planned for Abigail and definitely someone else planned for Athelis. I like what Kari says here. I think you can love someone and recognize their shortcomings and still walk away, and sometimes that's best for everyone. That's very, very extremely true. And says, "I'd love to see Athelis redeemed. He needs to feel remorse and ask for forgiveness." Exactly. That's exactly what I wanted to do with that because so far we've just seen him, uh, broken down by what he's lost because he does love Pet. He really does love her, and he loves Zero in as much as he can with how twisted up his mind is. So it affects him that he's lost those things and those people he loves. But yeah, he needs to change before he can enjoy those relationships or before it's safe for anyone to enjoy that relationship with him. So yeah, it all needs he needs work. Okay, I think I've caught the ones that were in the background. Um, Kaylee's asking, did Athelis put Pet in her own mind at the end of book 8? No, but he knew that memories had started to be triggered, and when he knew that they were starting, he absolutely pushed them into coming on because the timing was exactly right. So he did things that he knew would trigger those memories to really come out. So he literally went through some of the same things that he had done on the night that he murdered her parents to push that out, which is one of the things I mean when I say he loves her, but he's willing to use that relationship and push any buttons to achieve what he wants. Uh, Bonnie Chan asks, will we get to see more of Morgana? I believe so, yes. Not necessarily in this spin-off series, though a certain merman is going to have a prominent place in at least one of the books. But Morgana will appear a little bit more as a peripheral in the second spin-off series. A bit like Pet and Jin Yong, except Pet and Jin Yong will be more often seen in the second spin-off series. There are going to be some help to our main characters. Siwang asks, I've always been curious, since we have a north wind, do we have any plans to feature incarnations of southeast, west winds? No. The reason for that is the north wind was sort of my homage to George MacDonald, I guess. I loved his At the Back of the North Wind when I was a child. I still love it now, but I haven't read it in a very long time. And I just took that idea or that name, but his incarnation of the North Wind is extremely different and magical and exciting, but very unlike mine. But it was just sort of a little nod in that direction, a little bit like the nod to the poem "The Highwayman" that I had in book 3. It was just things I've loved that I've put little nods to throughout the books. It's, I guess, Easter eggs? Yeah. You'll probably have found a few in there. Um, the like the ogres have layers. It's stupid, but it's fun for me, so I do it. Christine wants to know, when did Zero realize he was related to Pet? Okay, so he had definitely realized by the time I think it was book 6 came around. he realized sort of book 6-ish, I believe, both he and Athalas, um so he and Athalas took a little while to realize exactly who she was and how she fit in, but they both knew before they ever said anything about it. And Zero didn't say anything about it because he actually did think that, or had started to think that she must know anyway when she didn't. So yeah, he knew earlier than he mentioned, but I think it was about 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly because I don't remember exactly which one the lines I'm thinking of were written in. Again, can't brain. 10-book series. Becca's very excited about Zul being in the spin-off series. Yeah, he's gonna be in at least 1 book. I think he might be in more than 1 book as well. I'm interested in seeing what I can do with him, because as you guys know, he is slightly weak moral fiber in terms of personhood, so that should be interesting to play with. Kaylee wants to know, how did Athalas turn into the many-eyed monster, the fairy, the nightmare? So I think, so when Athalas was telling people to forget, a lot of the coercion that went into that and a lot of the magic would naturally work with a child's normal imagination to produce some kind of feared figure, which is exactly what happened with each of the children. It just was distinct in each of them to something that seemed more frightening to them. So with Pet, that was something standing at the foot of her bed, and a slightly more realistic image. And with other kids, it was something quite different. So, yeah. Oh, yay, we've got other people. Confused Raccoon says they also adore the back of the North Wind. Yay. Old school fantasy. And Redbook's excited about Ryder Easter eggs. I really love it when I find them in other people's books, and they're so much fun just writing them into my own books. Kaylee wants to know, what was Athalas's relationship with Zero's nurse, Pet's great grandmother, Anne? He just grew up with her. They were friends, and he knew that Zero loved her like a mother. So, yeah, it was that kind of relationship. There was no more than that kind of a relationship there. T Wang wants to know, will we see more of Blackpoint? Yes, you will. He won't be necessarily in the spin-off, either of the spin-off series, I don't think. He may appear in the second one because he's actually someone that could. But there's a book in it for him as well as for Abigail, I believe. So there will definitely be more of Blackpoint. There's Yeah, he's one of the ones that I had a whole story about. Some people were asking, is he the king's son? Was he this person or that one? He's not connected to anyone or anything other than being a fae who just hates his nature and the nature of other fae around him, and wanted to do something about trying to get people, human people, knowing about the world behind, or at least the fae part of it, so they wouldn't die as often. So he's sort of been collecting humans, even humans who hate fae. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to play with. Clockwork Girl wants to know about Tuatu's grandmother. Um, that he has lots of little pieces of advice, and my grandmother told me. I don't know that we ever will get more about her. She's one of those things that make it very obvious that Tuatu also has a connection to behind and to between, and that things are not as normal in his life as he would have liked to have thought, but that don't necessarily make me think that anything more needs to be written about them. It's one of those things that's connected to the fact that he ended up pulled into this, but not necessarily connected to needing to be connected with the human cell or anything like that. She was just an islander lady who, like Vespa, knew a lot more about the world behind than people normally would. So she's one of those sorts. She was just basically an islander version of Vespa, who definitely wasn't into knitting, and who, unlike Vespa, because Vespa, of course, doesn't like seeing the things she sees, or at least she knows they're dangerous, and she's quite convinced that if she says they're not there and ignores them or pretends they're not there, they can't harm her, which in a way is kind of true, and she's doing really, really well with her concentrated attack of disbelief, and I love that for her. But Tuatu's grandmother chose a different path, which was to learn how to deal with to deal with the world that keeps impinging on hers, and to make sure that her kids and grandkids know how to deal with that world. So she's an unconnected but knowledgeable person in terms of the world behind. Oh my goodness, the postie arrived. It's nearly midday and he's arriving now. Where's my parcel, sir? I have a parcel that's supposed to arrive today, but he didn't put a parcel in there. I'm very upset. Never mind. Don't mind me just chuntering about my parcels. So yeah, like Vesper, there may not be more written about her, but she had a reason and a place for what she was. It's just she may not necessarily have a story written about her. So, um, Esther says she thinks she's seen nods in KM Shay's books that were hat nods to my books. I think I've seen one or two myself, and it makes me very happy. I've read some of her books. We've chatted a couple of times as well, and we talk online more often than face to face. But it's always so much fun when I talk with her. She's a lot of fun to be around. Well, online and screen to screen to be around. Okay, so somebody's saying massive spoilers for Between Kings. Um, Kaylee wants to know, will Pet's arm ever grow back? No, no, arms don't grow back in general, and I want people to understand that it's not the end of the world if you lose an arm. There are consequences to doing the right thing sometimes, but losing a limb isn't the end of your life. It's just something that happens to you, and I want people to understand that doesn't make you less of a person, or it doesn't ruin your life. It makes things harder, of course it does, but it doesn't it doesn't devalue the rest of your life or you as a person. So it's very important to me that Pet doesn't get special favors when it comes to things just magically growing back, because that's not what happens in general. Prosthetic, I can see her getting a prosthetic, as Siwang asks. Um, but again, I feel it's a prosthetic is something very normal and useful to have if you've lost a limb. I know some people don't like to use them. I can imagine why they wouldn't want to use them, because I can imagine it would feel very odd. And there are other people who definitely get good use out of them. But again, the big thing for me was not trying to magically fix Pet, because she's not broken. She's missing an arm, but that doesn't mean her life's going to be any less full from now on. And she's going to learn how to deal with that. So I just wanted it to be clear that, contrasting her with Athalis was willing to give up everyone and everything except himself to be able to get what he wanted, whereas Pet was willing to give up every part of herself, including her body, to look after her friends and to do the right thing. And the consequences for Athalis are dreadful, but Pet also has consequences as well. It's not just bad people that bad things happen to. So I wanted to be very, very clear about that, that this is not a thing that needs fixing about her. It's something new about herself that she needs to learn to deal with. So people are suggesting that an arm made out of Between would be cool. I guess, yeah, it'd be a bit like a prosthetic arm, but I've got an idea that Pet will be using a prosthetic if she uses anything, um, and otherwise learning how to just live life with the body she has, I'm guessing. Red Rook's annoyed with their mail person yesterday. They were supposed to get their anime pins, but they actually came today. Ripped off. Yeah, I'm annoyed too. Anne says it's a sign that a world has been built well when you can imagine backstories for characters even when one hasn't been imagined by the author. I enjoy hearing you guys' ideas about that. Like, you're also really clever and interconnected with your thoughts about like everything being connected, which is delightful, which makes me feel bad sometimes that no, this isn't connected. It's just a random thing that happens because random things sometimes happen. Um, but then I'm like, "No, no, that's normal and should happen too." But you guys' ideas about who is what, at the end of the stories, that's made me very, very happy about that. Shirley says she's thinking bespoke clothing designed by Jin Yong for Pet. Yeah, Yeah, I reckon Jin Yong is going to be very much into that. He loves designing clothes and making specifically designed clothes that work for a left-handed person with the kind of closures you'd need for one hand that make it easier. He's definitely going to be on board for that. So I'm thinking Pet's going to be sporting a slightly more military style from now on with side lapels and buttons that are easily undone for just wrap style clothing and that sort of thing to make it, yeah, to make it a little bit easier for her. Redbrook says that Pet could get some auto mail. I've seen people saying that, I think that's from those brothers, the anime and the brothers. I've forgotten the title of it, but I know the one you're talking about. I tried to watch it, but I'm really bad with watching anime. Guys, how do you deal with, okay, for a start, I don't like the voices, they irritate me, but I can deal with the voices, but the faces keep changing. So the character will go from being this person in this clothes, and then the height and everything will change because 'cause they're angry and the facial expressions will go different. I literally can't tell who's who. I can't. I started Full Metal Alchemist, yeah, Brotherhood. So I started watching it, and it sounds like exactly my thing, but I cannot keep straight in my head who is who. I literally can't tell because of the way that it's drawn. I'm constantly lost. It was a little bit like that with Silent Sea because everybody was wearing um, astronaut helmets and suits. So literally everybody is dressed the same way. They have much the same figure. The height is literally the only difference about them. I gave up trying to know which character was which in that as well, and I still enjoyed it. Apart from being a bit disappointed at some bits about the ending, but I won't spoil it for people. It's still a good show, worth watching. But again, it's something I can't tell the difference between the characters. I don't know who's who. It's driving me nuts, and I think I'd really enjoy it. So I'm very annoyed about that. Tulips and Honey says Five is pretty attached to his leg. He really is. He loves that wooden leg. He made it himself. I'm pretty sure he made it out of something that was belonging to an enemy that he managed to kill. I can't remember, but it's something like that. And he's very attached to it and he's very upset that he keeps losing it. I keep expecting him to make a what is it, a pilgrimage down to to the Hobart Rivulet underground to try and find it again. So we'll see how that goes. Esther says Zul and Blackpoint and Zero should work together to make Pet a really good prosthetic. It should be interesting. Wang says, honestly, one of the things that kept running through her mind was Five and Pet being team missing limbs. Well, yes, there's that, and we've got Marisol. I mean, he's got his limbs, but he can't use them in any meaningful way, which is hard for him, no matter which world he's in. So I guess he could be part of the team. Becca wants to see some of Jin Yong's clothing designs. I should actually try and do some of those because I have some ideas about it and I'm kind of excited about it. So, yes, Redbrook knows what I'm talking about with Full Metal Alchemist, the chibi forms. Yeah, the chibi forms and the changed face. And how do you guys tell? I honestly, I don't understand. English, no, but English dubs are worse. English dubs are worse than subs for me. I love subs. Subs are great because I love listening to the originals. Um, But yeah. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a fan of Japanese, like the sound of it. I've got cousins who have done full immersion and they've been over to Japan multiple times. They did all their schooling in Japanese. It was amazing. But just the sound of it to me is unpleasant. I don't like the sound of Japanese. Whereas the sound of Korean and Italian are both very similarly warm and pleasant to me. So it was much easier for me to learn. Obviously, that's my bad taste. Please don't be offended if you're Japanese. I think you're nice anyway. It's just the language itself I find difficult to listen to. It's just very, very different. Apparently, the English language to Korean people sounds like a lot of hissing, so that was something I learned, which was very interesting. A lot of people don't like the sound of English because it's the really hissing sound. Megan wants to know, was I worried or disturbed by some of the ships I saw people talking about Pet and Atlas, etc., etc. My mum wants to know. Okay, I can understand the Pet and Atlas one. It's that kind of mongoose and the snake type relationship, so I can see it and I can understand it. But I would for this story especially, I would absolutely not write that. I can see myself writing something like that for Athelis, and I'd considered it, but well, even the idea of saying it's a mongoose and the snake, we picture the snake as being the most powerful and the most dangerous, but those mongoose are really, really snappity, raggedy little fighters. So it's often not the relationship that it looks like it might be. So I wasn't disturbed by it exactly because I could see where they were coming from. I really like Athelis, so I can see why people were attracted to him. Um, but also I knew very much that that's not what I was going for. Like I said in some earlier lives, I was exploring different kinds of loves. There was familial love, romantic love, and sometimes love that needs to be cut off before it can do any more harm. So yeah, it was a different kind of love, but disturbed, not really. Kaylee wants to know, can I make more city between merchandise? I have to get on to doing that. I do have stuff that's meant to go out. I'm just really bad at remembering to do stuff because I have the object impermanence thing where once it's not in my sight, it's out of my mind, which is also why I forget to eat my food. So yeah, I'll try and get on to that. I'll answer some more questions and I'll start trying to wrap it up because it hasn't like it's been an hour and a half now and it hasn't seemed like that long, but also I'm very tired and I should probably have a nap now and then maybe eat something. Eating's hard at the moment. After your stomach does the emptying thing for a couple of days, it doesn't want to eat anything else, which I think is really rude, but that's what's happening. So I'm drinking a lot of tea and this morning I ate like a quarter of a blueberry bagel. So I'll get on to the other quarter after this. Redbrook says, been trying to get my mum to watch Full Metal Alchemist. I can really understand it. The storyline sounds amazing. I would love to see it. Somebody's waiting for their Full Metal Alchemist keychain. I would be excited about that too. I've got some fan things that I always get, like Mandalorian stuff. I buy probably more of than I should, and of course I've got my little Grogu sitting up there behind Cedric. So yeah, anything that's Grogu or Mandalorian, I tend to get. I still want to get the soundtracks. That music is amazing. I love it so much. So yeah, if it's something like that, keychains and that, it's hard for me to resist buying it. I just bought a one of the Funko Pops with on from Amazon. Actually, it hasn't arrived yet. I'm very sad. That has Mando and the baby, both of them. So I'm very excited about that. Kaylee says, "Is there any jobs where we can preview your books for you?" You don't have to pay us, we'll do it for free. I do have a beta group, and from time to time, I'll refresh it in terms of sometimes people are just busy and they can't get around to helping, and they're giving of their own free time, so that's totally fine. I do from time to time do beta reading calls, and I might be once I revamp the way I actually do that and take it from Facebook to a different way of doing it, I will probably open and do a call for that again. I appreciate the interest. Tiwang says, yes, a subs person. Yes, subs are my favorite. I don't really like dubs. I will watch either way, but I really don't like. Anne wants to know, was 5 named 10 before he lost his leg? No, no, his name comes from 541. That's his pod number. He was born amongst or at least raised amongst about 600 other little leprechauns in one pod. So yeah, that was his number. He was one of the youngest, which probably explains why he's so angry all the time. Becca says she loves subs and dubs, just depends on the series and how tired her brain is. That's yeah. And if the dubs are well done, that makes a huge difference. And because it's anime, of course, you don't have to match the lips exactly, which is not as hard. If it's real life, what's the word I want? If it's, real people and real actors, then I hate dubs. It doesn't matter. I hate them and detest them, will not watch something because of it. But if it's anime and that sort of thing, I can understand that. Tulip says that I said in my last live that the sound of balloons bother bother me, and it's something that they always listen for. Yeah, it's very bothersome. I really don't like it. I don't know why it doesn't bother other people. It's just weird. Redbook says English is a rather ugly sounding language to them sometimes, and that Korean Japanese sound pretty compared. Yeah, I think that sometimes it can be. Yeah. Whoops, I'm losing some of these comments. Okay, I'm back. Anne says the unpleasant sounds of specific languages maybe is related to ADHD. It could be. I also have trouble if people are eating nearby, especially if they're eating loudly. Um, I literally want to stab them in the throat, which is not a very good reaction. I wear earphones because some of the people in my household, some of them are fine, just normal eaters. Some of them are very loud eaters, and that hasn't changed since I was a child. So I will put earphones in to avoid wanting to massacre my family because I feel like that's an unreasonable reaction to somebody chewing, even though it's unpleasant. Tulips is talking about when Pet says Athelis is the only one she hasn't seen shirtless and he should fix it. Yeah. Yeah, Pet sometimes says stuff that she really shouldn't say because she hasn't thought it through. And Sky says they feel less bad about some of their ships now. Oh my goodness. Oh, B Foreman says teach Dochi meal times so he'll remind me and that it worked for their folks. That's actually that's actually not a bad idea. He's sort of on a feed himself schedule, which is why he's a little bit fat at the moment. He's not all fur, some of that's just chub. And I need to probably fix that at some stage. Maybe I should just take him for a few more walks. If I get hungry enough, I get reminded, but if I'm actually focused on doing something, even if I'm hungry, I still won't do anything about it. I'll just finish what I'm doing. Tulips and Honey says, in our house, we never make toast without saying, my cuffs pet, I absolutely refuse to sully them with butterfat. I'm so glad that he can live on in the lives and dining rooms of readers. That makes me very happy. Oh, hello, Annie Jenkins. She says, "Ha, just got power back in time to see me say it's been an hour and a half. Time to wrap up." I'm sorry. I keep going for a little while anyway because I haven't come to the end of the comments. You guys have been beautifully talkative today, and it really gives me something to actually chat about instead of just being burbling on about whatever I'm talking about. Jacqueline says, "Thanks for going long. I thought I'd missed this. Love Between Kings." I'm so glad. I really enjoyed what I was able to do with Between Kings. So I'm really happy when people say that they've enjoyed it because most of the things that I wanted to do with that series, I felt like I managed to finish off as I wanted to finish them off. So I was quite satisfied with it. Becca says, "Can we meet Dochi in a live one day?" You've actually he's been in a couple of lives. I was actually gonna have him today because 'cause he's been fairly clingy this morning, but then he was too busy licking the other dog's face while the other dog was licking his face, so they seemed too happy to interrupt, weirdly happy licking each other's face. Gross. They just sit there for ages licking each other's faces. Ugh. Kieran says, "Me with Dungeons& and Dragons and Critical Role." Merch, and that they've given them so much of their money. Yeah, there's somebody. Everybody has something. With me, it's Mando and Grogu, and yeah. B Foreman says German and English dubs work. They would be fairly close. I've noticed that even with Italian, there's a lot of similarities because, of course, you know, root languages are very, very similar. So, yeah. Sounds like all you guys wanna stab people for eating loudly as well. I'm so glad I'm not alone. Yes, slurping. Oh, slurping. I hate slurping. I can deal with it better than people smacking and chewing with their mouths open, though, so Sky wants to know which character is my favorite to write. There are so many favorites with my work. I loved writing Kez and Marks. They were just so much fun. Pet's been delightful to write, and Athelis, of course, just so much fun. But I also enjoy writing ones like North and Twatu, especially when they bounce off each other. So I'm not sure I have a favorite. I have many favorites. I really enjoy my job. I'm so thankful that this is my job and that I get to do what I love, even if it's hard work sometimes. I'm legitimately so thankful. Cherish says, "Give him his dog bickies as treats when training him. That way he won't get chubby, perhaps." Well, it's not so much his dog bickies. I don't give him treats very often. He just helps himself to the other dog's feed bowl, which is the regular dry kibble that they eat on a daily basis. And he says, "Will there be a written update?" I should actually do that. Um, Basically, the thrust of what I said earlier was that the spin off series is going to be focused specifically on Athalas. It's going to be his journey from, I guess, rock bottom to him hoping for and aiming for restoration with the people and especially the one person he's harmed. So it's going to be focused on him while he's in Korea, sneakily trying to keep an eye on a certain wedding take that's taking place there and gets embroiled in a bunch of murders that happen instead. So yeah, that's the basic idea of the first spin-off series, and that's what's going to be happening. Becky says they've missed most of the lives, so she hopes she gets to see him sometime. If he was close, I would pull him up here, but no. Kaylee, Kaylee's asking, do I have any strange collections? Okay, so some of you guys know I used to have it up here. Um, I kept all my baby teeth that came out. I was planning to make a necklace out of them. It seemed reasonable at the time. So yes, I guess that's a strange collection. I have a collection of my baby teeth just waiting to be made into a necklace. What about you guys? I don't keep my toenails though, so I feel like that's something to be celebrated. Tulips and Honey says, I feel like Kez and Pet would be fun together. They'd burn the world down. Yes, exactly. Haha. Oh, B. Foreman didn't come in time to see about that. Yes, it's all about Atlas, the entire spin off series, 5 books. He's the main character. There are other main characters, but he's the main one. He's the point of view character. Third person close most of the time, I believe. So, yeah. Ah, Bonnie Chan says a prebiotic might help with ADHD symptoms. I can't take a lot of the prebiotic, probiotic. I get really sick from them, unfortunately. But yes, my gut health is extremely bad. It's why I've got rosacea, amongst other things. But I'm only very slowly learning what I can eat and what I can't. Most of the nightshades are out. So yeah, I'm learning bit by bit. But prebiotics don't always help, unfortunately. But I'm still trying to find one that will. And says, um, I don't suppose you've read my review of Between Kings. I loved it so much. Found Pet's injury really harrowing, but her attitude is perfect. She achieved her goals. It was harrowing. I know losing a limb is always going to be harrowing. Um, but I thought it was something that needed to be done. And I'm so glad for the people that understand and were able to accept that as well, because I definitely didn't want to just give consequences to bad guys of things that happen. Yeah, I see that you wrote probiotic instead of pre, but I have trouble with both, with the probiotic and the prebiotic. I don't know I don't know why. It's just my stomach's unreasonably sensitive. Yeah, Seabank says a necklace of baby teeth is totally reasonable. Thank you. I think so too. B Foreman says divine strange. Well, exactly. I mean, teeth aren't that strange. Yeah, I mean, all of you guys have lots of teeth. They're just in your mouth. Sky says, excited for the spin-off. Athalas was one of my favorite characters. He's still one of my favorites as well. So I'm very excited about that. Oh, Kaylee's weird collection is rubber ducks. Have you seen James Veitch talk about rubber ducks in the house? If you haven't, please go to YouTube after the live. Look up James Veitch rubber ducks. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's one of my favorite videos of all time. Weird collection, notebooks for writing that I never write in. No, that's normal. That's perfectly normal behavior for a writer. Don't even think about it twice. That's perfectly normal behavior. All of us do that. Megan says she keeps all the bits of broken glass she finds, still trying to find something to do with them to justify herself. You can make artwork from that. You can do those little, what are they called? Where you put little stones together. Mosaic. I'm starting to lose my mind. Mosaics. Yeah, you can make a glass mosaic. It will look beautiful too, I reckon. Bonnie Chan says, "Love the labyrinth poster." Yeah, I got that out of the special book. You know how they have, this anniversary collector's book? I've got one in it that has, like, all letters and set directions written down in the director's handwriting and all that sort of thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful coffee table book, and that came in it, so I was very happy. Tulips has an unhealthy amount of Christmas decorations. Does that count as strange? You can't have an unhealthy amount. Tinsel smells good. You've gotta keep that. Sophia says, "My mother, who grew up in Korea with a physical disability, are you familiar with that challenge?" I've seen, I'm not familiar personally with it, though I do know how people looked weird at me when I had sprained, or not sprained, I'd torn a muscle and could barely walk. I can't imagine, because I've seen how little representation, for a start, in Korea, and how little acceptance there is of people with physical disabilities because you need to be perfect all the time. There's so little effort put toward helping people like that, or even just providing um, reasonable, comfortable levels for people like that. So I rarely see any wheelchair ramps in Korea. I don't think I've seen a single one. I can only imagine how hard that must have been. It's why I've been delighted lately with a couple of K-dramas that have actually featured Koreans with physical disabilities. It's, in my opinion, as someone who's not a Korean, so take it for what it's worth, um, to me, that's something that's really jarring, and I would love to see change. I can only imagine how hard that must have been for your mother. So she must have done really, really well to go through with that. That's insanely hard. Kieran says they watched a YouTube video about someone who lost their leg in a terrorist attack, and the concept that I address with Pet is amazing. Thank you. Um, yeah, I watched a couple of videos and did a bit of research beforehand, and one of the most things that was most interesting to me about people who've lost a limb is they say that they thought that they would be less hungry because, less blood flow, less this and that, because they've lost a limb. It should mean less energy, but they get more hungry. They need more food. The reason being that you're using so much effort just to do the same stuff that you used to do more easily with all your limbs, that you literally need more energy to do it. Thus, you eat more food. And I found that fascinating. So, of course, I included it in the book. So that was very, very interesting. B. Foreman says, "Chia is an excellent source of calcium, among other things that's good for you." I should actually do that. When I get bubble tea, I always get chia seed in it. It's my favorite way to have chia, apart from in bread. So I should actually do that. Foreman also says they play with dolls. You'll see. I mean, I've got Solace up there, and I've got Susan in the back, who's like emo with hair over her face. So I understand the playing with dolls. They just have to be the right dolls. Tulips and Honey says that makes Jinyon's response so much more adorable. Oh, it needed to be for that. I'm not saying all Koreans do this, but in general, and as a public thing, there were very little accommodations made for any kind of disability that I could see when I was in South Korea. And normally, if you see them in K-dramas, it's as the outcast, never as just a character in their own right. But like I said, that start seems to be starting to change, which is why I was delighted to see some of those characters in K-dramas. But it seems like it's an out of sight thing. If you've got a disability, you should keep yourself out of sight. That's how I felt. Again, take this as an outsider's point of view, as someone who is not Korean and has not lived for longer in Korea than about 5 or 6 months. So that was just my impressions of it. Annie says the brain remembers a limb, so can Pet have a between arm? A lot of people have asked that. I'm not planning on anything so solid as that, I don't think. But there will definitely be things that can happen because Pet uses between. I just don't intend for her to have her full range that she once had, because again, I want to keep those consequences. They're important to keep to the story, I believe. So I think I'll keep that. I am definitely going to start wrapping up soon. I do want to yeah, I do want to mention Sophia's comment here again, though. She said her mum was literally sent to her room when company came and not educated past the third grade because of her bad leg. That's the sort of thing. That's the sort of thing I mean. upsets me so much. And that's again, it's the sort of thing you don't if you don't see it as much in fiction, it's something that should be in fiction because you're not less of a person because of it, and you shouldn't have a harder time than anyone else or more than there should be accommodations made so that you don't have to start from as much of a disadvantage, and you certainly shouldn't be looked at as less of a person for it. Yeah, it's something that I would definitely like to see changed, and I think your mum is an amazing person to have gone through that and put up with that and just even survived through it, and yeah, I'm really sorry that's happened to her. That's yeah, it's attitudes like that that really bothered me, from what I saw in media, yeah. Um, and I know we'd say it isn't the case here in Australia, but there there is a certain extent to which people just always stare or look at you weird or treat you different. So and there's also the thing of people grabbing other people's wheelchairs or just forcing them to do just grabbing their mode of transport and doing stuff like that. So I can't say it's absent here in Australia because it's not. It does happen here. It's just not as openly done, and there are accommodations made here, and the government actually makes an effort to, make sure that things aren't kept like that. So, yeah, it's a little bit more of an advantage. Ah, everything I learn more about Sophia's mother just is, yeah, making me tear up because that's horrible. I'm so glad that you guys are doing well now, or at least I assume you're doing well. But I'm very glad that she seems to, have kids who appreciate what she went through as well. I'm gonna finish it up with tulips and honey here, because I really need to go and lay down. I'm about out of energy now. Oh, Sophia says it all led to her finding faith, which is wonderful, but also I feel like people need to be held accountable because you can't guarantee on that your bad actions will cause something good for someone else. So I still want to smack those people around the head, um, even though the results are good from her perspective, and God gave her good things. I still think that there needs to be justice for the wrongdoing. But I'm very glad that she found faith, Sophia. Tulips and Honey says, this is a random last question, but what's the best way we can encourage you? Reviews and sharing how much we love your books. Thank you. I always appreciate people asking this. It's really lovely of you. Yes, reviews and sharing how much you love the books definitely always help. Um, it delights me to see people out there enjoying my books. I don't keep up with every review. Like I said, I mostly keep up with the latest book up to a certain point, after which I get a bit overwhelmed, but I appreciate every review I see, especially in the early days. Even if they're not, completely complimentary, that's fine. I like seeing people react to my work in the way that, um, in a way that's organic to them, because my books aren't going to be for everyone. But also, obviously, seeing someone really get what I was doing is delightful. And it's just a fact that word of mouth and people sharing my books, definitely makes a difference to how well my sales do, and obviously that's going to help and encourage me. So I appreciate that. Those are all great suggestions. I've really appreciated getting to meet you guys through Facebook and Discord and Instagram and everywhere else. So thank you very much for coming out today and for all the questions and the input. This was a lot easier than a lot of other lives I've done, in that you guys were delightfully chatty and gave me a lot to bounce off and interact with. So thank you very much for being an amazing set of readers, and also, for coming out today and chatting with me. It was a lot of fun. So, yeah, it was great seeing you all. And I'm going to say goodbye now and go and get a fresh cup of tea. And then I'm going to go to bed, I think. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next book, or maybe just the next time I announce a cover coming out soon. Bye, guys.